Imagine waking up every single morning for 12 years, looking yourself in the mirror and choosing to try again. Not because success was guaranteed, not because anyone believed in you, but because something deep inside refused to let the dream die. That is not a motivational quote on a coffee mug. That is a real story. And if you have ever felt like giving up, what you are about to hear might just change everything. The year this story begins does not matter as much as the feeling that came with it. That specific kind of hope that new beginners carry. The kind that says, this time will be different. This idea is the one. This is finally my moment. The first attempt felt bold and full of promise. There was a plan, a vision, and the energy of someone who truly believed they were standing at the beginning of something great. And then, almost without warning, it all collapsed. The business closed. The savings dried up. The people who had cheered the loudest went quiet.
Most people would have packed it in after that first failure. Research from Harvard Business School shows that the average person dramatically underestimates how painful failure actually feels when it arrives, particularly for entrepreneurs who have tied their identity to their work. When the dream and the person become one thing, losing the dream can feel like losing yourself entirely. That was exactly the kind of moment this story carries, a defining crossroads that would have sent most people walking in the opposite direction permanently.
But there was no permanent walk away. There was only a pause, a period of grief, and then a quiet decision to study what went wrong. Not to assign blame to the economy, to bad luck, or to difficult people, but to genuinely sit with the discomfort and ask the harder questions. What did I miss? What did I assume that turned out to be false? What did I not know that I needed to know? Those questions, uncomfortable as they were, became the foundation of everything that followed.
The second attempt came with more caution and slightly more knowledge. It lasted longer than the first. There were even moments that felt like early signs of traction. A handful of customers, a few encouraging conversations, a brief stretch where the numbers made sense. Then the same old gravity pulled everything back down again. 2 failures. The people watching from the outside began to whisper, the kind of things that people whisper when they are not sure whether to admire someone or pity them.
James Dyson, the man whose name is now synonymous with some of the most recognizable household technology in the world, built over 5,000 failed prototypes before a single working version of his vacuum cleaner came together. 5,000. By the time he reached his 2000th attempt, his family was counting every penny. His wife was giving art lessons just to keep them afloat. The world has a strange way of making the people who will eventually change it feel like the most foolish ones in the room, right up until the moment they are not.
For the person at the center of this story, years 3 through 7 became a blur of attempts, adjustments, and returns to the drawing board. Each failure taught something new. One venture failed because the market was misjudged, another because the timing was wrong. One fell apart because of a partnership that started well and ended badly. None of these failures felt educational in the moment. They felt devastating. But looking back, each one was depositing something into an account that would eventually pay out in ways that were impossible to foresee at the time.
There is a pattern that researchers at Stanford and several leading business schools have identified in the journeys of late-blooming entrepreneurs and creators. They call it the accumulation effect. Each failed attempt does not simply end. It transfers skills, instincts, and knowledge that compound over time. The person who has failed 10 times in the same field carries a depth of understanding that no classroom, no book, and no mentor can fully replicate. They have been tested by reality in ways that produce a particular kind of wisdom that only comes from having had things fall apart in your hands.
By year 8, something had shifted. Not in the external circumstances, those were still difficult. The shift was internal. There was less panic when things went wrong. There was a faster recovery time between setbacks. The emotional valleys were still real, but they were not as deep or as long. What psychologists describe as resilience was not a trait this person had been born with in abundance. It had been built, layer by layer, through repeated exposure to difficulty and the decision to keep moving forward anyway. Resilience, it turns out, is less of a personality type and more of a skill that gets forged under pressure.
Year 9 brought the closest thing to visible progress the journey had yet produced, a product that people actually wanted, a service that solved a problem in a way that previous versions had not, small revenue that felt enormous compared to what had come before. The temptation was to call it a success and celebrate, but the hard lessons of the years before had installed a different kind of discipline, one that said, move carefully, stay focused, do not mistake a good sign for a finish line. That discipline would prove to be one of the most valuable tools in the entire 12-year journey.
J.K. Rowling submitted the manuscript for Harry Potter to 12 different publishing houses before a single one agreed to look at it seriously. She was a single mother living on government benefits at the time, writing in a coffee shop because her apartment was too cold. Walt Disney was told by a newspaper editor that he lacked imagination and was fired, before going on to build one of the most imaginative entertainment empires the world has ever seen. Colonel Sanders, the face of one of the most recognized food brands on the planet, did not franchise his chicken recipe until he was past 60 years old. These are not stories about talent. They are stories about what happens when a person refuses to let the external world write the final chapter of their internal story.
Year 10 was where the doubts became the loudest they had ever been. A decade, 10 full years of trying and not quite arriving. The people who had once whispered were now speaking more openly. Some had stopped watching altogether. Staying in the fight at that point required something beyond ambition. It required a kind of deep conviction that had been tested so many times it had become unshakable. Not arrogance, not delusion, but a quiet, bone-level certainty that the work mattered and that the answer existed somewhere just beyond the current attempt.
The breakthrough in year 12 did not arrive with fireworks. That is one of the most overlooked truths in stories like this one. The moment that changed everything looked ordinary from the outside. It looked like one more try, one more conversation, one more adjustment to the approach. But this time, all the accumulated knowledge, the refined instincts, the hard-earned understanding of the market, the product, the customer, and the process aligned in a way that they never quite had before. The door that had been closed for over a decade opened not because luck changed, but because the person on the other side of it had changed completely. Success, when it finally arrived, was not the version that had been imagined at the beginning of the 12-year journey. It was better in some ways and different in others. The business that ultimately worked looked nothing like the first one that had been launched all those years before. But every single failure had contributed something to its construction. The lesson that had been learned from the collapse in year 2 was woven into the product design. The partnership mistake from year 5 had shaped the way agreements were structured. The market insight from year 9 had informed exactly how the offer was framed to customers. Nothing had been wasted. Not one year, not one failure. There is a version of this story that ends with a number, a revenue figure, a headline, a moment of public recognition. But the more honest and more important ending is this. 12 years of failing changed the person more profoundly than 12 years of succeeding ever could have. What was built in that time was not just a business, it was a character. It was the understanding that the timeline you imagine at the start has almost nothing to do with the timeline that actually matters. It was the knowledge that giving up is always available as an option, and choosing not to take it, again and again, across years that feel endless, is itself the achievement. The business was the reward, the journey was the education, and the 12 years, every difficult, humbling, costly one of them, were not the story of a person who failed. They were the story of a person who was becoming. Thank you for staying until the very end, because the fact that you did tells me you are someone who understands that the best things in life are always worth waiting for.
Also, do well to like, subscribe, and comment so I can see you in the next video. Thanks, and bye for now.